we do. Yeah. Psychedelic.
Well, the final thing I want to say about Suge in his podcast was he said that after Tupac's Snoop and Nas did a song, Dre's compilation album. Big Dre was one of the guys in the car.
Right.
And he felt that that was, a big violation because here's one of the guys.
I was locked up, but Snoop, Daz, and the rest of them, they did a song with one of the from that side who was in the car. If that's Louis the Pac.
One thing's for sure, Snoop Dogg's name is never going to be far from all the talk about Tupac's Emder. I mean, up to this day, people are still wondering why he decided to jump on a track with Big Dre, a guy who had some serious ties to Pac's K-ing.
The problem is, DeAndre, not everybody else was in Las Vegas that night that Tupac was killed. Okay? And you were. And Terry Brown was.
Big Dre was allegedly in the car that fired shots at Pac and Suge in Vegas. And while some folks say it was Orlando Anderson who pulled the strings, others were convinced Dre was the real mastermind.
I'm saying that you're one of the people that take a fall. That's right. You're going to go to jail for the murder of Tupac Shakur. We've been told by more than one person that you were the one that pulled the trigger, and I know you got the to do that. You ever been to prison? No, you haven't. You're going to catch a hot one right out of the bucket.
After Pac was gone, Dre wasted no time starting his own label, Runoff Records, and before you knew it, he dropped a mixtape called Hard White with some big industry names, Warren G, Snoop, and 8. And that's when things really started heating up. People were wondering, where did Dre get the kind of money to lock in those features? Or even wilder, was this all part of a bigger scheme to erase Pac's legacy? And once Snoop got involved, folks weren't shy about calling him out. Why was he working with a dude who might have had something to do with Pac's death? Even Suge Knight had something to say about it.
I was locked up, but Snoop, Daz, and the rest of them, they did a song with one of the from that side who was in the car. If that's Louis the Pac.
Well, the final thing I want to say about Suge in his podcast was he said that after Tupac's Snoop and Daz did a song, Dre's compilation album. Big Dre was one of the guys in the car.
Right.
And he felt that that was, a big violation because here's one of the guys.
Suge Knight revealing that, Snoop, he worked with Big Dre after Tupac got. And when I heard that, man, that was wild. For you to be working with somebody that was in the car with Keefy D when Tupac got shot, that's crazy, man.
That kind of threw me off because I heard it, and I think I heard it from somewhere else. Maybe Reggie, right? From Bomb First, I think. I might have heard him say something similar where, that's crazy, bro.
But here's where it gets messy. Snoop and Pac weren't just rap peers. They were tight, like really tight, rolling together, making moves, running the game. But then, things shifted. Word on the street was that Snoop did an interview where he called Diddy and Biggie his guys, which, if you knew Pac, was a major slap in the face. That was the beginning of the fallout. Fast forward a little, and their crews were moving in different directions. Then, not long after, Pac gets offed. And here's where things start getting weird. Rumors popped up that Snoop and his people were actually supposed to be in Vegas that night, but plans changed at the last second.
Daz was on a situation saying that Snoop told him they can't go to the fight, can't go to the club, can't go to Vegas. It's going to up because something's going to happen, basically. Daz was like, no, I'm not going to that
And even stranger, Snoop had supposedly asked if Pac was still heading to Vegas in a way that just didn't sit right with people. Pac kinda brushed him off, and a few hours later, boom, he was gone. However, that track with Dre, that was just the tip of the iceberg. There's way more to unpack, so let's get into it. Snoop Dogg has been a huge name in hip-hop forever, shaping the game with his smooth flow and larger-than-life vibe. But lately, people are starting to side-eye some of his stories, especially when it comes to his time with Tupac and Biggie. A lot of fans are wondering if he's just building up his own legend instead of sticking to the facts, especially with all the rumors flying around.
Not true, Snoop Doggy Doggy Dog. Snoop lying. That's what you need to keep your name. Snoop lying because you always lying.
Take, for example, one of his biggest claims about Tupac's time in prison. Snoop says Pac was in serious danger behind bars, and it was him who convinced Suge Knight to bail Tupac out and save him from a bad situation.
Was Tupac having issues when he was in prison? Because I know Snoop, he always say that he was hearing bad things, so he told Suge Knight to get him out.
Sounds dramatic, right? Well, according to Napoleon from Tupac's Outlaws crew, that's straight up fiction. Napoleon says Pac was actually doing just fine in prison, making friends, taking pictures with people, and never once saying he felt unsafe.
But that's a false narrative that I think Snoop was pushing. You know what I mean? Pac, for a fact, he wasn't really, he had a lot of, like, he used to send us pictures, and his pictures on the internet where he was taking pictures with New York dudes up in Clinton. Like, it's a false narrative. I guess people, they like to say that so then they can vouch for some other rumors that's being spread about Pac to try to put dirt on his name. You know what I mean? So it wasn't a fact that he was disliked, he was holding it down.
Of course, he wanted out, but it wasn't because Snoop played hero and asked Suge to step in.
We used to go visit him monthly, some of us weekly. I can't recall him saying anything where he felt like he was in danger. You know what I mean? Like, not one time. He wasn't like, hey, I'm good. Y'all just go do y'all thing and leave me alone. No. He wanted to come home, but he definitely wasn't having any issues.
And that's not the only time Snoop's storytelling has raised eyebrows. Another wild tale he's told is about the 1996 MTV Video Music Awards, where he claims there was this intense face-off between Tupac and Nas. Now, the mid-90s hip-hop scene was already a powder keg. Nas and Biggie were battling for the King of New York title. Jay-Z was climbing the ranks. Wu-Tang was shaking things up in Death Row verses. Bad Boy was turning into an all-out war. Add Pac into the mix and things got even crazier. According to Snoop, Pac was furious over a Nas lyric he thought was aimed at him, and when they ran into each other at the VMAs, Nas rolled in with 100 shooters from Queens surrounding Death Row's crew. Snoop makes it sound like Pac was going off, completely unaware he was this close to getting ambushed, while Nas kept things cool and avoided a bloodbath.
But Nas had 100 with guns.
Right.
So listen to what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
By me saying he didn't want none didn't mean he didn't punk out.
But here's the twist. Snoop wasn't even there when it happened. Napoleon, who was actually with Pac that night, says the whole thing went down way differently. Instead of some heated confrontation, he says Pac and Nas actually had a respectful conversation and cleared up the misunderstanding on the spot. No insults, no threats, just two rap giants talking things out.
Pac wasn't disrespecting Nas at all. You know, I know Snoop said Pac punked Nas and then went to Snoop and said, you see how I got these New York dudes? None of that happened, bro. It was a mutual respect thing.
So when it comes to Snoop's version of these stories, let's just say, people are starting to wonder how much is real and how much is just part of the myth.
And then Pac literally told him, he said, look, I got songs dissing you. When I go back to LA, I'm gonna remove every verse that I mention your name in. But Pac couldn't do it because he passed away.
Pac even told Nas that once he got back to LA, he'd make sure to remove any mentions of him from his diss tracks. But sadly, that never happened because tragedy struck before he got the chance. And to make things even messier, Napoleon doesn't even remember Snoop being there when Pac and Nas had that conversation. And it's not just Napoleon calling Snoop out. Nas himself later confirmed that Snoop's version of events was completely off, which makes you wonder, why would Snoop even make up a story like that in the first place? Well, it turns out things between Snoop and Pac weren't exactly smooth before Pac's death. After Pac dropped Hit 'Em Up, his brutal diss track aimed at Biggie and Bad Boy Records, their friendship started to crack. Snoop was still cool with Biggie and Puffy, hanging out with them despite the all-out war between Death Row and Bad Boy. Then, during the 1996 MTV VMAs, things really fell apart. Snoop bailed on a planned rehearsal and a Saturday Night Live appearance with Pac, and then went on New York radio saying he had nothing but love for Biggie and Puffy. To Pac, who had literally just been in the studio recording fresh disses with Snoop sitting right there. This felt like the ultimate betrayal. From that point on, their friendship was never the same. Snoop later admitted that the flight back to LA after the VMAs was one of the most uncomfortable moments of his life. He was sitting right next to Pac, who barely acknowledged him, and he knew something was seriously wrong. Just days later, Pac was shot in Vegas, and the tension between them was never resolved. In interviews, Snoop has looked back on that last interaction with a sense of regret, knowing they never had the chance to patch things up before it was too late.
Having conversations and doing all kinds of things, saying nothing to me. Pac, you going to Vegas to the fight?
But according to Suge Knight, there was even more drama between Snoop and Pac behind the scenes, and their relationship was crumbling fast.
But like Pac and Snoop at the end hated each other.
And you can tell that by the simple fact that when Snoop did Dogfather, Pac was not on that one song.
And here's where things get even wilder. Snoop himself admitted in a Big Boy TV interview that he wasn't really a fan of Pac's diss tracks, which completely contradicts the image he's painted for years. This revelation stunned Napoleon and Reggie Wright Jr., who basically called it just another one of Snoop's fabrications. And Snoop's storytelling doesn't stop there. His supposed close friendship with Biggie is another thing that's been questioned. He's always said that he and Big were cool, that they had mutual respect. But according to Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, that's just not true. In a tell-all interview, Deal claimed that Biggie didn't like Snoop or respect him at all. He even pointed out that if Snoop and Biggie were really that close, why wasn't that obvious when they were alive? He called out Snoop's whole "we had love" narrative, saying, "Wasn't Big out in California 3-4 weeks and Snoop never saw him? Snoop never came and smoked anything with him. Never came and ate with him. But there was a lot of love? Come on, man."
When you be seeing these interviews with Snoop speaking on Biggie, how does that make you feel?
That's propaganda for the media, bruh. That's something that sounds good for the media. Pac asked you was going to Vegas and the whole 9 yards, and he didn't say nothing to you, or he said some slick shit to you, or whatever, this, that, and the third. It wasn't all that love until Pac was dead.
Since Biggie's death in 1997, Snoop has often talked about how much he respected him. In 2018, he even shared a heartfelt story on the Rap Radar podcast about a conversation they supposedly had after Tupac's death. Snoop claimed they ran into each other in Atlanta, and Biggie admitted he never wanted Pac to die, apologized for how things went down, and they squashed their beef right then and there. It's a great story. But with all these conflicting accounts, people are starting to wonder how much of it is the truth, and how much is just part of Snoop's legend. So when Gene Deal was asked if that so-called meeting between Snoop and Biggie in Atlanta ever really happened, he didn't outright deny it, because, well, he wasn't there. But he definitely wasn't buying it either. To him, the whole thing just didn't add up. I mean, how does Snoop claim he pulled up on Biggie in Atlanta, rolling solo like some kind of gangster, but never bothered to see him when Big was literally right there in LA? Deal couldn't help but side-eye that one, basically saying, "Oh, so you can visit him on the East Coast, but not when he's in your own city. Yeah, okay then." The skepticism was real. And honestly, after Biggie was gone and Suge Knight landed in prison, Snoop was just done. He was so over the never-ending chaos of Death Row Records and that whole East Coast versus West Coast madness. He wanted out, especially since his growing friendship with Puff Daddy had Suge absolutely fuming. Snoop tried to smooth things over with Suge, but that went nowhere. Things just got uglier. I mean, Suge had already publicly taken shots at Puffy at the Source Awards, calling him out for always popping up in his artist's music videos, which is funny considering Snoop later became the king of guest appearances himself. But the tension between them got so bad that people actually started whispering that Suge wanted Snoop dead. The situation was that heated. It got so messy that Master P, the head of No Limit Records, had to step in and literally buy Snoop out of his Death Row contract. And just when you'd think that would be the end of it, Suge decided to take things even further, basically hinting that Snoop was a snitch. The rumor mill went into overdrive in 1998 when word got out that Snoop had supposedly told the cops he was in danger after cutting ties with Death Row. And then, to make things even crazier, an internal memo from the LA County Sheriff's Department allegedly claimed that Snoop told a lieutenant that Suge was behind Tupac's murder. Nothing ever came from it. No charges, no case. But that rumor just refused to die.
He tried to accuse and told the sheriff that Suge Knight was the one that killed Tupac. It's in the police report.
And years later, that whole snitch talk came back around when 6ix9ine, yeah, that 6ix9ine, decided to stir the pot. He pulled up those old documents and threw some major shade, basically calling out Snoop for allegedly working with the cops. But Snoop was not having it. He clapped back hard, saying, "Everybody knows I ain't have nothing to do with Suge getting locked up. We had the same lawyers. This rat's just reaching, calling me a snitch, and for the record, he probably made up those papers himself. He's the one working with the police. Suge and I are cool now, so if I had snitched on him, we wouldn't be cool. And that's a fact. But let's be real. Snoop has always been great at making headlines with some over-the-top stories. Like, remember when he claimed he single-handedly kept the peace while filming Training Day in a Bloods neighborhood? According to Snoop, he showed up on set wearing a blue tracksuit. repping his Crip roots, but as soon as he realized they were deep in blood territory, he knew he had to handle things. So, as his version of the story goes, he walked up to the local OG, who just so happened to be in a wheelchair, kinda like Snoop's character in the movie, and somehow smoothed things over by buying $300 worth of weed from the guy. Problem solved, filming continues, everybody's happy. Sounds like a classic Snoop move, right? Well, turns out that's not what happened at all. The real story is way less cool for Snoop. Apparently, the Bloods on set weren't thrilled about him being there, and instead of some smooth peace treaty, they actually pelted his trailer with bottles. And where was Snoop? Not out there squashing beef. He was hiding inside, scared out of his mind, while someone else had to come in and fix the situation. That version of events comes straight from Spice One, a gangster rap legend, who recently spilled the real tea in an interview with The Art of Dialogue. He said that while filming the 2001 movie, a group of Bloods, who have a long history of beefing with the Crips, were making it very clear that Snoop was not welcome. And well, let's just say, his $300 deal story sounds way better than the reality of him ducking for cover. According to Spice One, the whole situation with Snoop's trailer getting attacked was way more chaotic than Snoop ever let on. He got a call from his OG Crip homie, who basically told him, "Yo, Snoop's trailer is getting lit up with bottles, and it's not looking good." Spice didn't waste time. He pulled up to the training day set to see what was really going down, and just showing his face seemed to be enough to calm everything down. The gang members on set instantly recognized him like, "Damn, Blood, that looks like Spice One," and he just went with it. "It is me. Y'all got any weed?" Classic. Once he got their attention, he didn't waste time sugarcoating it. And of course, nobody wanted to deal with the police, so they all dipped. Instead of running into trouble, they just walked around the block, sparked up a joint, and chilled while waiting for the cops to come and go. And Snoop? He had no idea Spice was even there to help. Spice just kicked it with him for a bit, smoked some weed, and kept it moving. But here's where things really took a turn. Snoop, in true commercialized Snoop fashion, later tried to spin this whole peacemaking image into a beer ad. And honestly, that just completely backfired. Instead of looking like he was genuinely about unity or addressing the reality of gang violence, it ended up feeling like he was cashing in on street life for a paycheck. And people noticed. The Bloods weren't about to let this slide, not by a long shot. They didn't just talk about it in interviews, throw shade online, or drop cryptic messages in their lyrics. Nope, they sent a real message. One that couldn't be ignored, one that was loud, clear, and impossible to pretend didn't happen. And that message came in the form of straight up vandalizing Snoop's own Funko Pop store in Inglewood? Yeah, Thad Doghouse. The very store that Snoop had hyped up as a dream come true. A place where fans could literally step inside his world, buy exclusive figurines modeled after his legendary career, and experience something totally unique. Got completely hit. And this wasn't some random act of vandalism. This was deliberate, calculated, and dripping with meaning. At first, everything was smooth sailing. The store was a success. Fans were showing up. People were excited. It looked like Snoop had pulled off yet another win. But then, out of nowhere one night, the Bloods decided to make their move. They didn't just scribble a few words on the walls or leave some meaningless graffiti behind. Nah, they targeted the mural of Snoop himself. The one where he was rocking his signature all-blue outfit, a proud nod to his Crip ties. They didn't just tag over it, they spray painted the whole thing red. And just in case anyone still had any doubts about what they were trying to say, they covered the wall with anti-Crip markings, including CK, which stands for Crip Cayer. That wasn't just some random act of destruction, that was a message. That was them letting everyone know exactly how they felt about Snoop's so-called peace efforts, which, to them, seemed less like a genuine attempt to unite people and more like a business move, a branding stunt, a calculated way to boost his image while staying out of the crossfire, and they weren't impressed. Snoop Dogg's legacy is always going to be up for debate. No matter how much he wins, how many brands he backs, or how many generations love him, there will always be people wondering, was he really about that life, or just playing a part? Some see him as a hip-hop legend who stood the test of time. Others think he's just a well-crafted image, stretching the truth about his past. And then there's that one thing that never fades. The whispers, the rumors, the endless questions about Tupac's MDR. But here's the truth. This conversation isn't going away. As long as Snoop stays in the game, people will keep talking. So what's next? Does he just keep cruising, playing the role of hip-hop's laid-back uncle, cashing in and keeping it cool? Or will the streets, the same ones he's always repped, the same ones some say he left behind, demand answers? Because in hip-hop, one thing's for sure, the past always catches up.